bit of a roller coaster journey for New Zealand, losing 3 early wickets. At the stage, it looked like maybe they could just about get to 140. Then a partnership put on. Suddenly, they were entertaining thoughts of 190. And then just about 3 overs in the last 3 overs meant that they finished up just shy of that at 172 for 5. Still, at the end of the day, a good total, the best total in Dubai in this tournament so far. And they'd be pleased with it after, as I said, the loss of those early wickets. The chief architect, Martin Guptill, with 93 of just 56 deliveries. Here we are on Cricbuzz Live to assess New Zealand's performance in the first half and can they go on to defend this as we expect them to do. Dinesh Karthik, Bhattacharjya joined me. TK, it was one of those you could never really tell until the last ball was bowled how many they were going to get. It was fluctuating.
Oh, yes. I think the wicket wasn't as bad as it is normally been, to be honest. I think the Dubai wicket hasn't actually been very kind to the batters, but this time it was slightly okay. But you still saw 3 quick wickets obviously puts a lot of pressure. They don't bat deep. They only bat till Jimmy Neesham. Santner coming in at 7. So it's a pretty light batting order, so to say. But in spite of that, it was great to see one of the senior statesmen, Martin Guptill. He's been around for a long time, stitch a good partnership along with Phillips. Obviously, Phillips, even right up to the end, couldn't get the momentum that was required, but it was a very, very important partnership, and the standout batsman, without a doubt, being Martin Guptill.
Yeah, Joy, he looked that the heat was getting to him towards the end, but he hung in there, knew that he had to push the occasional 1 to a 2, but got the big boundaries when it mattered.
He got the big boundaries. If you look at his batting performance, it's the number of sixes he's hit. It's fours. He's hit 6 fours, but he's hit 7 sixes. And those sixes is the one that make it count. He has that strength. Also, he's hit about 5 of them on the shorter boundary, but he's hit on the other side as well. He's got that typical arc, which is straight from around mid-wicket, square leg to deep mid-wicket, and he just hits it so well out there. The thing about him is that he never really has done too well in the subcontinent. So seeing him here, these are not the kind of pitches in which Guptill normally prospers. And seeing him here gives you an example of sometimes how, unfair even, say, franchise cricket is. Because Glenn Phillips was a hot property. Every franchise was going after him and he could hit a single 6. He couldn't get it off the square because, batting conditions are not easy. And yet, even in batting conditions that were, not easy compared to, they were easier than they were a few days back. But Guptill getting 7 sixes under those circumstances just tells you what kind of brute strength and ability he has. And he's been a mainstay for New Zealand for such a long time. So what I also appreciated was he did finally get out playing a tired shot. But even to that 17th, 18th overs, he was running 2s. He was actually making that effort. There's only one time when he finally said, okay, I can't run this one. But till then, you see the number of 2s he's run, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, that heat, if DK, if you're not used to it, we talk about the humidity in a place like Chennai or even Kolkata, but this is a different kind of heat. And if you're not used to it, it can get to you.
Yes, we got to understand at the end of the day, a few decades ago, it was an absolute desert, that place. Today, it's gone on to become one of the most lavish cities in the world. But at the heart of it, at the core of it, it's a proper desert. So the sun has remained the same. The heat has remained very, very same, very dry, very stuffy. Unlike other countries, it's a very different heat to combat with. And you can see from where Guptill comes from, obviously, sun is not very evident most parts of the year. So, as much as I like being out in the sun, this is a bit different. It's a lot warmer, a lot, prickier, if I might say. And that got to him, just as Joy was saying to us. And he's like, no, I can't run this 2 anymore. I'm done with it, sort of a situation. But all said and done, Joy was spot on when he said, when he showed the attitude, the eagerness, and, he's not been somebody who's been too consistent in this part of the world. For him to come out and do as well as he has today, he'd be very, very pleased with the effort.
Yeah, and the numbers back it up. It's only his second 50 in T20 internationals in Asia. So good effort from him, Joy, but it was something that they desperately needed. When Williamson goes without scoring, when Devon Conway comes and goes, Mitchell didn't give them the start that they wanted. Suddenly, we were almost saying on Cricbuzz Combox, are Indians starting to check the score and say, are Scotland doing us a favor?
Exactly. That's what halfway through they would have looked at it. 73, okay, there's something out here, might happen. So let's keep watching out. So people would have been checking the score, but that's the point. I think one thing that we don't realize is that it isn't. And this current New Zealand team, at least in this current structure, is not a deep side. I mean, Santner at 11, at 7 is a stretch. Okay. Then Adam Mills is okay. But none of this 7 and 8, Santner is not the strongest 7 by a mile, country mile in this business. So this, they depend a lot on their top order, and they just managed to get through it. There were a couple of very crucial moments. So if you remember, 10th over is over. They're about 69 or 70 in 10 overs and 3 wickets down. And they have 2 right-handers at the crease. And at that point in time, Watt is bowling well. Okay, Chris Greaves is bowling well. But they decide to give the off-spinner Michael Leask a chance because they feel that, let me sneak in an over because Bradley Wheat had gone for a few runs. And what happens out there is he goes for 12 runs. The momentum completely changes. And I know they were probably in the situation where they said that, maybe a left-hander will not come on. But had they been under a bit more pressure, maybe you might have got something out of that. But that was where the pressure released. And then Guptill took it over, and then it just went away from them.
Well, it could have been 200 plus, DK, had it not been for some really smart bowling. And I'm not even talking up top by Sharif, but Mark Watt. Every single time he's been delivering this tournament, we showed you his figures at the start, and look at today, 4 overs, 1 for 13 against a top side like New Zealand.
Well, I don't know about IPL, but I'm sure a lot of franchisees in other parts of the world will be watching this World Cup very keenly. And Mark Watt has definitely thrown his name out there. I think to be consistent throughout the World Cup says something about his expertise and how good he is. It's going to be very interesting to see how the future unfolds for him. Over a period of time, he's shown his credentials against the associates, but now he's standing up against the big boys and producing the same performances. So that says a lot about his character. I'm very keen to see how far he is able to, in terms of consistency, how far he's able to keep, notching up those performances.
I think consistency is the key word that TK just mentioned, Joy. We've had a few players, and off air, we were chatting about some of the players like Richard Levy who have come into the IPL on the basis of one spectacular performance. But this is consistency. Anyone who's looking at this is saying he's delivering every single time. He's an asset.
Yeah, absolute asset. On a pitch when the ball is not turning, he's just using the crease beautifully. He's bowling wide Yorkers. He's following batsmen when they go. So he's cramping them up for room when they're moving to leg to try and open up their arms. And then quickly bowling a wide Yorker there. He's using the crease. Did you see there's one ball that he bowled almost, 1.5, about a meter behind, like Kieran Pollard. So I love the way that he's just not allowed the batsman to settle into any kind of rhythm. And absolutely, maybe IPL is a very difficult stage. It's probably the highest stage in franchise cricket. But I mean, I'll be really surprised if he's not playing at least 3-4 other leagues around the world, as DK was saying.
Tell me, DK, as a keeper, when there's a bowler who bowls using the crease like the way Mark Watt and a few other bowlers do, maybe from 2-3 yards behind the crease, is it something you get a signal about saying that, listen, watch out for it? Or does it not impact your reading of the ball as much?
No, it doesn't impact too much because as a keeper, you're used to seeing the ball as soon as it releases from the hand. So irrespective of where you release it from, you start taking the cues as soon as he releases it. So our first cue is not dependent on the run-up. It's dependent on the point of delivery. So at the delivery strike, once we know he's going to bowl, then we start watching his hand and we figure out which way to go. So generally, as a keeper, you don't get kind of alarmed by it, but definitely as a batter, sometimes you're surprised because you set up your stance in such a way that you're expecting a certain length of the bowler's run up, but suddenly when that is cut short, you feel a little different. Your setup can change a little bit, whereas for a keeper, it's a lot different.
Well, now the real question is, can Scotland's batsmen do what their bowlers have done so well and put a little fear in New Zealand hearts and a little cheer in Indian hearts, Joy? We know that someone like George Munsey can go hard. They've got Kyle Kutzer back into the side. Is it going to be aggression in the first 6 overs? Should that be their approach?
Yeah, look, there's again no point going down, scoring 118 and just leaving it. It's better being all out for 130 and trying to get to the target. And look, again, because they're in associate size, 1, 2, 3. I mean, the top 3 batsmen, Munsey, Kutzer, maybe McLeod, they're top players, okay? They're the top players. If anyone's going to get anything out of this pitch, they're going to get it. And I think once the ball slows down, even they're going to find it tough. So, I mean, if people like Glenn Phillips and all were just struggling to time the ball, you don't expect them to walk in and, start timing the ball from an associate country. So these 3 guys, these first 6 overs. If there's any chance, there's very little chance, but if there's any chance, it has to start here.
Final thought from Dinesh Karthik. Yes, it's the surface, the inexperience or relative inexperience of Scotland, but the quality of that New Zealand attack, India have seen it firsthand. I think that holds the key to the next 20 overs.
Yeah, New Zealand, when they bat, they obviously come as individuals, so it's a little different. But when they field, they come as a pack of 11 wolves. So it's not easy. They're a very, very tight, well-round unit. Their strength in many ways is their bowling. They bowl to a plan. They keep it very simple. Obviously, everybody wishes well for Scotland, but we all know that even if they get to 130, 140, it'll be a massive achievement. But I really doubt that.
Well, that's what we feel here from the show. Joy, the image that I'm being left with, thanks to Dinesh Karthik, is the wolves, New Zealand as wolves. But because of the amount of sheep they have on their island or on their islands, I'm going to think of the phrase "sheep in a wolf's clothing." That's all I can think of New Zealand as being. They're all 11 sheep in wolves' clothing coming out to try and defend this total. And let's see what Scotland do with it. We will, of course, be back in the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox to see how they're progressing, and then not just wrap this up, but look forward to India versus Afghanistan. Big one coming up this evening. That's all from Cricbuzz Live.